You have to adjust the seat, put the key in the ignition, turn the key, adjust the mirror, check for obstacles, place the foot on the brake, press the accelerator, seatbelt, judge the distance, monitor traffic, turn the wheel, calculate the distance of the mirror, and stop the child playing with the radio. Now, you did all those things very, very carefully and intentionally. It took a lot of time to back out of the garage the first time. How do you do it now? All those things are still taking place. But they've been stored in your basal ganglia. You don't have to think consciously about it. You can allow the software to deal with other things. You're already thinking about your work, you're already thinking about the deal, you're already thinking about the shopping, you're already thinking ahead. Because it's all there stored. And that's good. You don't want to be focused on all these things every single time you back out of the garage. So that habit is a good habit. So what is it that you have to do? You have to distinguish your good habits from your bad habits. And work on your bad habits. McDonald's knows this. Now, I know none of you eat McDonald's, but McDonald's, let me tell you, is a very clever outfit. They make the architecture, the appearance of every place look identically the same. The employees are trained to say certain phraseology over and over again, which they know immediately works for the customer. The foods are engineered so that they deliver an immediate reward. The fries are designed to disintegrate immediately they hit the tongue, providing a hit of salt and fat as soon as possible, lighting up your pleasure centers and being able to lock into the pattern of the brain. And you do this once, twice, 3 times. And immediately then, you see a McDonald's down the road. What's happened? That cue line leads you to the lighting up of the pleasure centers, anticipating, and you are addicted to McDonald's. That's how addictions take place. Any addiction, to anything. And we are taken advantage of because our habits are formulated by manufacturers, by vendors, by marketers, by media, etc. We have to undo these habits. And there has to be a technique to undo it. A habit consists of 3 things. A cue, which your mind has already been cued into. A routine that follows, followed by the reward. The McDonald's sign. Get over there quick, because you know you're going to get a reward straight away. Or whatever might be the case. And that's just an example of all aspects of addiction and different kinds of addiction, and certainly bad habits. So I'm going to tell you very quickly a game plan on how to undo it. It's very quick, and I'm not going to actually explain it here, because that requires a seminar where we actually train it. It consists of distinct elements. Number 1, whenever you find yourself, and you have to be conscious, practicing a bad habit, 1, note its location. Where are you at that time? Secondly, what time of the day is it? Some habits relate to place, some habits relate to time. Mid-afternoon, you always want to get that sugar raise. So you find yourself always then going down to the coffee place in order to be able to get that little sweet together with it. You don't realize it. You say, that's my habit. It's a good one. I want a break. I need a break. It's not. It's your sugar that's causing you that. And the reason why that's happening, because you're not planning the way that you eat during the course. You're not planning the way you eat during the course of the day. Another factor, what are your emotions? What am I feeling at that point when that habit takes hold? Who are the people around me at that time? What activity am I engaged in? If you keep a journal and have these 5 elements noted for a period of a week, you're going to find a pattern. And that will give you the ways and the clues on how to undo the habit. And that will create for you b'chira chofshit, the capacity to be able to choose freely. Because you have to be a mindful individual. You have to really be a conscious individual. As Albert Einstein notes, Any man who can drive safely while kissing a pretty girl is simply not giving the kiss the attention it deserves. All things in life require mindfulness. They require attention. Habits get in the way. Bad habits drive us towards bad ends. A habit is something that forms in the spacesuit of the brain, preventing the neshama from expressing freely. You can undo that. And by undoing it, you physically change the brain. And by changing the brain, you allow the neshama to have, in fact, a freedom. You are born free. Life takes a toll and enslaves you. I'm asking you to regain that freedom and allow your own gifted neshama, who you are, to express truly. Are there any questions? Yeah. Yes, sir.
When you say thoughts, sometimes you can't help what you think, but you don't have to respond to every thought that comes through your head.
It's interesting what you say, and it's correct. Your control is much more over behavior than it is over speech. Your control over speech is much more so than over thoughts. That's the reason for that is, well, this is not the place, but the more you stretch your soul outwards, the more you have control over the externality, the further away it is from you. Behavior is stretching the soul further out, so you have a level of control. Speech is harder. That's why a lot of people let words flow unwisely. Okay, but you can control speech. As you said, thoughts is harder. But I want to contradict one thing you said. Yes, you can control thoughts. You can't stop thinking. I'll grant you that. But you can switch thinking. Hashem created us with the following very fantastic fact. You can't think of two things at the same time. You can't think of two things at the same time. You can oscillate very quickly between two things, but you can't think of try it, you can't. Which means that if you're thinking about something negative, if you have the capacity to displace it with a positive thought, you've achieved your purpose. And I teach that, how to displace a negative thought with a positive thought. That you can do.
How do you break the habit of sleeping late?
How do you break the habit of sleeping? What you do is, you send an email to Laibl and you say, give me 3 sessions on how to be able to sleep less in life. I guarantee I can cut it by 30%. Okay? Yes?
Multitasking, that's actually an actuality.
Multitasking is simply poor use of mindfulness. Multitasking is the enemy of mindfulness. Multitasking is the enemy of being focused. Don't let anyone tell you that multitasking is an asset. It's not an asset. All it means is you're not dedicating yourself properly to the one thing you should be dedicating. Yes, you can dedicate yourself very strongly to something for a short time, and with that intensity achieve it and move on, even seconds. But you can't divide consciousness squarely and fairly doing several things at the same time. Let no one tell you otherwise.
How do you deal with a lifetime of feelings of abandonment?
The short answer is, it's not easy, but everything is achievable. Everything is achievable. It's all to do with interpretation, as I said earlier. Reframing. Feelings of abandonment are an interpretation of features of your life. You have to relearn a new interpretation and allow it to flow sufficiently often through your mind in order to displace the old wiring and replace with new wiring. I'll give you a very good example, which is not abandonment, but to illustrate, and I'll just close with that. When people used to have, they still do, God forbid, have strokes, and say a person, God forbid, Laibl has a stroke, and arm doesn't work. So the rehabilitative approach that used to be the case previously was to help that person regain the particular use of his or her arm. And what we did in the meantime was we strapped that arm up and we taught the person to compensate by using their good arm. That makes a lot of sense. You've got to function in life, so get on with life. Get your good arm to operate better, more efficiently. We've changed that. You know what we do now? We strap up their good arm. We don't allow them to use their good arm. And ask them to will themselves to use the arm that seemingly is not working. And the rehabilitative process is cut by 2/3 of the time. And those that can regain, do regain much more quickly. Why? Because what we're really doing is teaching them how to rewire the brain. The circuit has been broken. So let's create an alternative circuit that relates to that arm. That's, for example, what, in a way, why people who are fit, and God forbid have heart attacks, but if they're fit and trained, they have many circuits of blood flow to compensate for the one that's not working. In a sense, that's what we're talking about. How to create the other circuitry of the brain to compensate. So yes, even in abandonment, you rewire the brain. For those of you who would like to continue any of these training processes, there are materials I have on the back just to explain very quickly. The CDs are on different subjects, how to live with health and wellness, and I have meditative exercises in each of those CDs. There's another one that deals on how to change your feelings, how to love truly, one on how never to be angry under any circumstances, and onwards. I'll leave that all to you. There's one just on music, nigunim, for stress management. It's a classical guitar over Australian bush sounds, guaranteed to relax you in seconds. Then there's a 3 CD set on how to be mindful, training you how to be mindful, and training you in meditation for mindfulness. And then Random House very kindly published my book, Practical Kabalah, that deals with personality analysis through the Sefirot, so you can understand yourself better. And those of you who would like at any point to be in touch with me and do any Skype work together, I'm happy to facilitate you. Just email me. And finally, you have little raffle slips. Fill those out. In 5 minutes, we're going to have a raffle and someone will win one of the products on the table. And if you put your email address, you receive my weekly blog. And then you can write to me and say, Laibl, I hate your blog, take me off the list. That's fine, I have a thick skin, by all means do so. I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to